feel like we jumped over a really important part. You guys scrapped your entire thing right before demo day. I was gonna like ask,
We
what
did.
what did you do? Like, what
Yeah.
how close was that
Well,
to
we
the? Yeah,
I'm having a flashbacks like of showing
yeah,
up to school without my science project because
yeah.
the
It
night
was it would be
before
the
I started my project the night before and I didn't have anything.
yes. Or it's like you walk out and you just like drop the science project and like the school bus runs over or something like that.
Thanks for checking out another episode of What Worked. This is the podcast where we bring on business leaders, executives, founders. A lot of them are friends. A lot of them are new friends, just to talk about some of their backgrounds and expertise. We're tapping into things that have worked for them in the past. Oftentimes, we actually end up talking about what didn't work and the learnings from those challenges. We're having a lot of fun with this. I think this is our third or fourth episode that we're recording. So we're new to podcasting. It's been really great to connect with other people in the industry. And we have a great guest teed up today. Tyler, I hand it over to you.
Yes. So I'm a firm believer in chance, fate in life, and it was pretty cool. This actually, I did a post on LinkedIn about an experience that I did this summer. For those who might not be familiar, there's I'm going to call it a Slack group, even though I know that they'll be so mad if they hear that. For lack of a better, description, Pavilion is a Slack group. It's a membership only group where I would call it generally sales professionals. They've expanded to a lot of stuff: sales, marketing, customer success professionals. Hop onto the Slack group, share knowledge and learnings. They have a really cool offering that I was able to take part in this summer, which is called CRO School. So I was getting the itch to kind of level up my I don't know what you would call it, Mike, level up my expertise within Hireframe, kind of bring some new skills and tools to the table in terms of building our company. I saw this really cool opportunity to take effectively what was like a summer course, a series of lectures with some really great people. And in the process, I saw someone checking out my LinkedIn profile who happened to be Nick, who was also going to be attending this school. We connected over LinkedIn, decided to schedule a call to get to know each other. And I can just say with Nick, he's just one of those people that instantly I was like, I kind of dropped the professional baloney, right? And I was just like, this is a dude that I get along with instantly. And we've been staying in touch ever since. But he's building something really cool in Vector. And before I continue any further, Nick, why don't you introduce yourself to the What Worked audience?
Yeah, happy to be here, guys. Thank you so much, obviously, for those kind words. The networking space in general, and just being able to meet people like the two of you and get into this professional world where we all have that same drive to go continuously learn. It's just a great community, and I think it's a spot where we've all been in where. In this remote hybrid world, it's so hard to do. It's different. It's a different muscle to pull on. So I'm happy to be here, happy to meet with you guys and learn from you. And so since you asked, Vector, co-founder of Vector, and Vector is a pipeline generation company that maps relationships to your target accounts. So you can think about LinkedIn and all the connections that you have. We've realized very quickly that LinkedIn connections are not a strong measurement of authentic relationships. And so what we do is use a very data-driven approach and in building our own social graph and figuring out who knows who based off of many different shared experiences across your past.
And I'll add to that. So I was fortunate to preview Vector. That was one of the first things I did with Nick. And it immediately, they're very early on, right? Are you officially at launch? Are you launched?
Coming up a couple weeks. We've got some people testing our very, very early MVP. Our bigger product is going to be launching here probably after Thanksgiving, December timeframe. We're going to do some testing, some alpha testing, beta testing, and then probably early next year is when we're really going to get out there.
Very cool. But I'll bring their product, and I know it's going to be a lot more than this, but I'll bring their product kind of into my own world here. For anybody who's ever been a quota carrying salesperson, especially as you start out, you're kind of like, how the heck do I build pipeline, right? And if you think it's anything like the movies, you think you just literally just grab a phone, right, and start to smile and dial and hope that somebody, takes, sort of mercy on you and gives you a little bit of an opportunity. I think the real story behind a lot of salespeople and building pipeline very quickly, especially when they're new, is you get help from someone, you get introductions. And I just remember that when I started off in sales, I leaned extremely heavily on getting introductions from my two co-founders at the company. They
Yeah.
offered it. They said so in a sales meeting. They said, "Hey guys, if you see somebody and we know them, or we know someone who knows them, ask us to get you an introduction. We're happy to do it. Helps our company, helps you. Everybody wins in this scenario." And I was always shocked because only a handful of people in the room actually took them up on that. I was like banging on their door for everything. I was like, "Do you know this guy named Jeff Bezos? It seems like somebody is connected. Can you get me an introduction?" So what I thought was really cool when I looked at Vector is it's effectively an application, Chrome extension, right? Kind of application where
Yep.
you can do that exact thing. But at the time when I did it, I was at a small company. There was a handful of us at HQ. Call it like 15, maybe 20. But Vector really allows you to do that same thing. Ask executives for introductions or other people with a very, very high degree of data intelligence, and do it at scale. Let's say you're
Right.
entry level salesperson at a very, very large company. You can have 500 plus people. You can do it.
Yep.
And I thought that was really, really cool. So for anybody who is listening to this, and honestly, if you're building anything, you should really consider checking out Vector. Very, very cool.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's the hard to scale element is what you mentioned. That is something that is always in the back of our head because word of mouth advertising, we know it in the B2C world. When you go to a barbecue and you see someone has something that you've never seen before, oh, that's
Totally.
awesome. Where'd you get it?
Yes.
People love to evangelize and rave about the thing that they found and that you need. And of course, what are you going to go do? You're going to go grab your phone. You're going to go buy it immediately. And so this B2C world that we all know and love has moved very quickly in the B2B space, and that's how we buy now. And so if you can get someone to tell you what changed their life in the work environment, that's going to be an automatic meeting, and it's going to lead to a lot more opportunity.
Totally. You're making me think now of the hundreds of baby products that I've bought from being at said barbecue.
Yep.
I'm like, wait a second, are you telling me this helps your child sleep exactly 5 minutes extra? Okay, I'm on Amazon
Done.
right now. I'm buying it. I'm buying 10. So I get it. And I think in getting to know you, Nick, I thought that your background's really interesting. How the heck does a guy? I'm going to kind of spoil the surprise here, but you have a background. You were served in the Air Force for a long time. How the heck did you end up in tech? How did you end up in sales tech? How did you get here?
Yeah, so flew airplanes for 10 years in the Air Force, and obviously the dream of an Air Force pilot is to go sell B2B SaaS solutions, right? Like that's what everyone wants to do. That's what everyone wants
number
to do.
One is probably to be Top Gun, right? Maverick. And then
Right.
number two, the number one Maverick, number two would be B2B SaaS. If I'm stating correctly.
That's all we do is just dream about it. So basically spent 10 years doing it, had a fantastic job, had a great time doing it. I was gone all the time. Kids were getting older. I was getting burned out pretty quickly, like you would think. And so because of that, I was ready to go do something different. I had an MBA. I was ready to go use it, ready to go into a much more not only sustainable career, but something I had a lot more control over. If I were to leave and go to the airlines, there would be a specific longevity that I would have, and it would most likely get pretty boring at some point in time, just for me, not for everyone else. So I went to GE Aviation, spent 3.5 years there, went through a pretty substantial program for their military officer leadership team, and I would go through 3 different business elements over an 8-month period of time each. And then you settle on one of those elements to kind of learn what you were most attracted to. And so I spent time leading a P&L for about $35 million for our clients at that time, who are major airlines. And so, again, fantastic job, great opportunity, learned a ton. It really still wasn't what I was looking for, which was a little bit more risk, a little bit faster pace. Spent the next 3 to 4 years at Box leading their enterprise sales engineering team. Had a fantastic job moving from big, slow corporate environment to a much faster startup environment, and then pivoted over to Drift, where we took their first sales engineering team from about 2 individual contributors to 20 globally. And that's where I met my co-founder. We had a great time working together and growing that team, also in the sales engineering space. And we decided we spend all day, every day, helping build solutions for prospects and sales teams. Why not go ahead and figure out how we can go do this together on our own?
That's really cool. And I want to pause on one important bit that you just before we get to the next subject, right, which is where you go from there with your co-founder. Mike and I, when we started working together, we spent a lot of time just figuring out if we should work together, right? And
Sure.
and we did some very specific things to kind of test that relationship and figure out if there was alignment. I picture you guys, sneaking away in like a conference room, talking about ideas and that sort of thing. How did this whole thing happen?
Yeah.
Did you ever have any, were you ever apprehensive about moving forward? Like how, or did you just jump into it immediately?
Certainly apprehensive. Anytime you take such a massive leap to go from stable company with a fantastic team, a great group of individuals, and then go and do it on your own and give up that job security, the more significant paycheck, you take a major pay cut, all of those things start going through your head. And so the way that we wanted to handle that, it was very delicate, where we wanted to make sure, obviously, we weren't doing it at that time, the quiet quitting craze, right? You're off doing your own side project, and then your side
Sure.
project becomes your basically consumed full-time job without you actually showing up to your full-time job. So we were very conscious about that. So we would work our normal work day. We would pause, have dinner with the family. We would come back. We procured our own Zoom accounts, we used our own computers, all that sort of thing, and just treated it like it's a separate business. It just starts at 9 o'clock at night and goes till about 1 a.m.
Wow.
And so that was where we would just kind of come back and we just ask each other, what was the biggest problem you saw today that you've seen before? And we just start brainstorming, like, how can we not jump to a solution, but why is this a problem? Who's it a problem for? Have we seen this elsewhere? And we start just listing out problem after problem and figuring out where other people might have this. And that's where you just use your network to figure out, is this something that they run into on a daily basis?
Totally.
No, that's super interesting, Nick. I'm curious because I do not come from like the sales ranks, but both you and Tyler do. So from an outsider's perspective, I'm curious to know like what those problems were, those challenges were back when you were, the Box and the Drift days, and compared to what those challenges are today, which I'm a little bit more familiar with. But what I've experienced in the past few years is that the sales landscape and how sales gets done can change rapidly in a blink of an eye. So I'm curious to know like what you were seeing then compared to like what you're seeing now, and maybe how that feeds into what you guys are building at Vector today.
Absolutely. Sales landscape is absolutely changing rapidly. And we're seeing it today with the consolidation of tools. Clary and Gong, Outreach, SalesLoft, all these tools are continuing to be consolidated. Everyone wants to be the major end-to-end platform.
Right.
So what we continue to see back at that point in time was just, it started small, little inefficiencies where you would start breaking down sales reps from the top third, middle third, bottom third. And you'd realize pretty quickly there's something that the top third reps are doing that no one else is. And then you start to try to pinpoint, what is it? What are they doing? Is it a piece of software they're using? Is it a technique? Are they asking one specific extra question? Do they know the technology and the actual product better? Do they know the industry that they're selling to better? And you start trying to ask all those questions. Why are they regularly top third? And why is everyone else not the top third? And obviously there's swings in between those categories, but that's where we would really kind of hone our skills on, because as a sales leader, the best thing you can do as a sales leader is try to up level those middle third to top third. How do you get as many more middle third into that bucket as possible? And if you can replicate something that someone else is doing, that's a very easy change. You go do it. The middle third to mid, or the bottom to middle to top, that's a little bit harder of a struggle. And so now you just at least have to, start with the smaller changes. How do I get someone who's in that middle to top, and then I can go work on the bottom third at that point in time? But identifying those habits and that regular cadence of what someone is doing at the top is a pretty big challenge, because usually you're not, as a manager, managing them that highly, because they're pretty self-sufficient. And so
Totally.
you don't necessarily see every little day-to-day thing that they do.
Can I ask, is there anyone, I'd love to give a shout out to that person. Is there anyone that comes to mind,
Yeah.
like where you think of some of the best salespeople you were ever around?
Oh my God.
Specific
Absolutely.
things that they did? Any
Yeah.
one in particular?
Oh, there's so many. Number one, she's at Plaid now. She was at Box. I was her SE. Her name's Lauren Bowes. And Lauren was one of the most incredible AEs with the ability to use her surroundings, use everyone around her. She was not afraid to say, I'm not the expert at that. Let me bring in someone who is. So she would go get a product manager. She'd go get a C-suite executive. She'd go get an investor. She'd go get an architect, anyone she could find who knew that answer backwards and forwards to the question that was going to help her move the deal along. She would bring them in. She had no ego or ability to say, I have to know all the answers to all the questions. In fact, it was better that she didn't, because stereotypically the prospect or the customer takes what a sales rep says with a grain of salt, as you might imagine, right? There's a little bit of, trust that has to continue to build. But if you bring in an expert whose entire job is to answer that type of a question, all of a sudden the deal moves to the next step. And so she did a fantastic job with that.
That's really cool. Shout out, Lauren, and may your inbox be filled with potential job offers, hopefully.
Got it. Yeah, she doesn't need them, but she can do it well.
I know exactly that type of profile that you're talking about. What are you gonna say, Mike?
No, I'm curious, like if you are like a bottom third or like, middle third sales rep, but you're ambitious and your intentions are right, you're trying to get better. Like, how do you go about figuring out like what's working for like the top third or just the people that are performing better than you? Like, how do you do that? Especially today where maybe you're working remotely, everyone's got their own secret sauce. Not everyone's knowing what's working for them, even if they're at the top. I'm curious to know how you go about learning from others.
Yeah, well, in any job, the hardest part is being honest with yourself to say, wait a minute, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I should probably go figure out what my peers are doing. And so it's hard. It's really hard to have that recognition and that self-confidence to, have the retrospective in your own self to say, I'm not cutting it. Unless someone has told me that. In sales, that's actually pretty easy to do. Either you're hitting your number, you're exceeding your number, you're hitting your number, or you're way off, or somewhere in that. So it's very easy measurement to know where you are. And so if you're consistently not hitting your number and other people in your space are, now you know who to go to. And it not only tells you you're not doing something right, but it also tells you who exactly you should go sit down and talk with. And so one of the things as a sales engineer that we had privy to was I saw all of the sales reps across the entire company, the sales leaders. I was in a meeting with some of the best, some of the worst, everything in between. And so I saw the entire perspective. So it turned me into almost a sales enabler at times.
Sure.
And so by doing that, I was able to go tell this person who maybe didn't handle the question the right way, I could go tell them, go do the thing that Lauren does. The way that Lauren would answer this question, it would be this way. You should probably go answer it kind of like her and maybe go talk with her and start coaching them on who to go talk to. We had the privilege of seeing all those people unless they were watching gong calls or something along those lines, they didn't see their own peers handle sales meetings nearly as much. And they probably should, think about how to budget time to go do that. And I know that there's a lot of sales reps, even if you're not hitting your number, who are incredibly inquisitive on figuring out how.
Yeah, that's one of the things, right, that I wonder and I kind of worry about for anybody who's trying to sort of climb the sales ranks today because of this current state that we're in with offices, right? Where a lot of people work from home. And if you do work in an office, it's kind of a hybrid model. You come in like a couple days a week. I know that for myself as a salesperson, my growth came entirely from being in the room with other salespeople and while watching them pitch. I used to, go to these pitches with my co-founders, and as they were talking about, and to your point, as they were answering specific questions, they were pitching the business. I was like furiously typing. The prospect would think that I was taking notes on the meeting. No, I was verbatim writing down what they said, and then I would just practice it. I would just practice it until it became my own kind of natural way of describing things. And I do think that there's this kind of notion, if you don't have that, it's a black box, right? You kind of see somebody and you see they're putting up monster numbers, and salespeople are not the best about sharing their secrets, right? So that's really cool that you had that sort of insight, and you were able to kind of see the entire playing field. I am curious. So transitioning here a little bit, you met your
Sure.
co-founder. You started your second job at nights, really your third job, right? Did Josh
Yep.
have a family too at the same time, or
Yeah,
no?
you did. Yeah, young
Okay.
kids, everything. Yep.
Yeah. So wow. So three jobs really. And so your
Yeah.
third job started late at night. You were talking about a bunch of problems, right? Ultimately, you landed on the problem you're solving today with Vector. But my guess is that wasn't the first one, right? So was
No.
there any kind of false starts, things that you guys felt were like, this is an awesome problem to solve, could be a really big business, before you guys landed on whatever you ultimately pitched and went with?
hmm Yeah, there's certainly, and that's one of the things I learned the most about being a founder. I always thought being a founder was, I'm going to take this idea, transform the market, and just brute force it into the market as much as possible, and I will die trying. And it's not the case. There's certainly those situations, Coinbase, Uber, and types like that. They definitely did that. Now, most of the time, being a founder is all about having an idea, an observation, and then just listening to the market and listening to the way that the market is telling you whether or not this idea is going to work. And so we always were listening, sometimes too much, and we pivoted. We pivoted maybe sometimes too early. But the thing that we continue to understand, that the problem space that we're solving in, which is sales, is the thing that brings us the right founder market fit. We're always going to chase the product market fit later, but we were the expertise in the things that we've observed around the inefficiencies of sales. How can we go take those expert opinions and observations and bring them into a repeatable product? And so for us, we certainly went in, applied to Y Combinator with a different idea than what we're doing now, but very much in this, like, let's go solve problems for sales reps.
That's awesome.
Founder market fit. I've never actually heard that term before, but it makes all the sense in the world. I think if I had to kind of play it back, right, it's kind of like a combination of, you found a problem, but are you the person to solve that problem? And does the
That's
market
right.
actually want you to solve, finding that, right? So, Mike and I would love to create the next streetwear brand. We might not be the people to do it. That's what I think of with founder market fit. With our
Yeah.
backgrounds, we'd love to make the next Supreme. I don't know if we're going to do it.
Yeah. And Nick, like on paper, when you look at your LinkedIn profile and Josh, your co-founder's LinkedIn profile, there's a lot of similarities. You guys came up through the
hmm
Navy, then worked your way into sales engineering, at some of the same companies even, so same industries. But tell us a little bit about kind of how your skills are complementary, maybe the different roles both of
Yeah.
you guys play in this co-founder relationship.
Oh yeah, our similarities on paper are exactly why you would recognize the fact that we found each other is because of, as I mentioned before, shared experiences. Shameless plug, but those shared experiences are put us together and found like, we found our way. But the differences are actually what makes us such good partnership founder or partners in our foundership. And so when we think about the differences, I'm much more operationally driven, right? I flew airplanes in the Air Force. So everything in my mind is a checklist from top to bottom. Number 1, 2, 3, 4. Do not skip from number 1 to 3. You have to go in order. So those are things in my mind that I have to think about. And as a founder, it's certainly a strategy and a methodology that I had to break. That was something as a founder, you definitely have to break that. There's no playbook for being a founder. So you have to be able to be fluid and go in multiple different directions. Now, I am not the engineer. I'm not the technical founder. Josh certainly is. He's been coding since he's 12. He's written hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of lines of code throughout his years, and he's thrown away so much different product of just tinkering and testing and being able to be interested in a space. Go build something for just pure internal use. Go build something that he's going to throw out into the market and see if it sticks. And so for him, he's always been, how can I build the next thing that's going to help solve that problem? And what's that version 1 really going to look like? And so there's a lot of that give and take. The things that we don't do well with each other are actually the differences and the contrasts that make us actually very good founders.
That's awesome. And I gotta think a lot of this probably came up. So, when you were applying to Y Combinator. So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
as two guys that will never probably ever do that. Never say never, I suppose, Mike. But it's still though just I have this imagination that goes wild. I picture part Shark Tank, part maybe like Sam Altman just sitting in like a giant concrete like warehouse with like, and he's like 50 yards away or something like that. My imagination goes wild. I'm sure it's not that cool. But yeah, what is it like to apply to Y Combinator? And also too, knowing you, I know that you started off with one idea, but you ultimately ended up somewhere different. So I want to hear all about that experience. And definitely
Absolutely.
plug. We'd love to hear what worked, what didn't work when you were at Y Combinator. Sure.
Absolutely. So the thing that we realized was, when you go through the interview process at Y Combinator, it's incredibly fast, and they do so because they're interviewing so many different companies. We understood that it was 10 minutes, 10-minute interview. That's it. And what we didn't understand is what we're going to get asked. You can make some guesses on, obviously, what are you building? Why is there a need? Who are you going to sell to? What's your tech stack? Who's building it? All those types of things. But there's just too many questions to prepare for. The thing that you should prepare for is more around the framework. How do I answer in 2 to 3 sentences so the person on the other end, who probably doesn't know a whole lot about your space, is going to at least be intrigued? If they can learn something in the interview, then they're going to be intrigued to ask questions and to want to learn more. If there's confusion, then 10 minutes doesn't give them enough time to go deeper. And so that's where you have to be able to just, just like you're selling, just make it easy for them to ask a follow-up question. And so for us, obviously our resume doesn't scream deeply technical. It doesn't have the traditional YC founder. We went to Harvard, we went to Stanford, we were PhDs in AI. We don't have any of that, right? In fact, we didn't even work on an engineering team. And so by having that gap, we didn't look like a normal YC founder would. And so obviously the interview was highly technical. Josh obviously spent most of the time answering those questions. It was less about go to market, far more around who's building this, what's your tech stack, what code are you writing it in, why, how are you gonna articulate this to the outside world as a need? It was a novel idea at the time, and so I thought it was very very appropriate for the fact that, we were not coming in looking like the most of the YC founders, but we had no idea that the first interview, we actually had a second interview, which was rare. The first interview was highly technical. The second interview was much more about, okay, if you can get through that portion of it, how are you actually going to go sell this product and what is your game plan?
After that first one, did you think you did well? I mean, and especially you personally, right? Because I got to think that he was answering most of the questions, right? So like, what was your feeling coming out of that? Were you like nailed it or no?
No. In fact, they say it's 10 minutes, and I think we ended at 8 minutes. And I was like, well,
Oh
that didn't
no.
work out very well.
Oh no.
And so meanwhile, I think I answered a half of a question.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I got it right. I answered, a half of a question, and yeah, we came out of that with absolutely no idea. And honestly, our whole motive of like, let's go interview for YC was like, we're probably way too early. So at least they'll give us good feedback when they say no. We've heard that they do that. And so that was our motive of like, hey, let's go tell the most prestigious accelerator program in the world what our idea is. And they'll tell us if it has merit. It just needs a little bit more maturity. Or they'll tell us this doesn't sound like a good idea at all, and we should probably listen to them, or at least start trying to understand why they think that. So yeah, we came out of that meeting thinking, oh, okay, no, this didn't work, but we'll see what they say. And they gave us a second interview with different partners, much more go to market. Yeah, it definitely worked.
That's amazing. So you get in, and I assume you move, right? You had to move for at least the length of the program, right? So
we were in the last hybrid batch.
Oh.
So there was, very, very, very advantageous for us because we couldn't have. We're both on the East Coast,
right,
and we wouldn't have been able to move.
Wow. Yeah. And that would have been also with families too. That was what I was wondering too, is how the heck you do that. Okay.
Yep.
So then what is you go into, I'm using your own words here, the most prestigious, accelerator program in the world that you didn't think you were going to get into. What was that experience like for, I think what really intrigued me about having you on as a guest is, frankly, you're really relatable to me. I'm not technical at all. Mike is not, but at least Mike has more of a traditional kind of a, background in finance, right? But I can barely use Gmail and that sort of thing. So I'm just really curious. What is Y Combinator like for? You're not like me, but guys sort of like
when we're daydreaming about, because a lot of the companies that we work with that are customers of Wireframe are actually Y Combinator companies. So
yes,
for us, when we daydream about YC and where these companies like were sprouted from, it's clear. It's clear. The vision is clear of what the technical co-founders are doing. To us, they're in a dark room jamming away on a high-powered laptop. But for
what is it?
The non-technical co-founders, it's very opaque. It's less clear on how you spend your day, what you actually do, what the priorities are, and how those kind of come together with the technical side of the team.
And also, how are you received, right? Because I just picture feeling like high school all over again. You're like the new kid, the awkward kid, because I just picture the script is flipped here. If you're not technical and that, you're kind of an outsider. You're the black sheep. So I'm really curious what that was like for you.
So I'm smiling, so eager to answer this question because it's at the mercy of throwing my co-founder under the bus.
Oh no, that's okay. He won't listen to
it. We'll edit anything out.
Yeah. We're good.
I do it all the time. He loves the story. So let me give you paint the picture of what it looks like. The first week was all virtual. The second week was 100% in person. So we flew out. There was a big retreat for everyone in the batch. You go up to Sonoma. They rent out a hotel. Beautiful location in wine country. And so we get off the bus. We start walking into the lobby. We check in and we start talking with all of the people who are in our batch. It was very clear we're talking with incredibly intelligent people.
Sure.
I mean, people who... There was someone in our batch that was working on a project in the AI LLM space. He did his dissertation on LLM models and how to take remote African languages and
What?
convert them through to English through LL. It's just massively, complex.
Amazing.
I don't even know if
So
I don't even know if I
that was the low
explained
Yeah.
hanging
that the
fruit.
right
He
way.
was going for the
Yeah.
low hanging
Yeah.
PhD.
You just
Oh yeah.
when you
Just
explained it, you just nod.
wildly. Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. Oh, that's it. That's all you're doing. And so
What
we,
else?
after only a couple hours, had these conversations, just fascinating people that we were surrounded with.
Yeah.
And we realized, okay, we're standing out a little bit, or at least I felt that way. My co-founder, Josh, was like, no, I can code, I can build things. And so, which he can, but the conversations were certainly at a level that we've never experienced. And so there was a happy hour that night that got us to get to know everyone from partners to other investors to our batchmates. And so you can envision this big ceremonial hall, this like wedding tent kind of environment. There's food, there's drinks. And we walked in there saying, okay, we're going to double down on who we are. If they're going to view us as like the salespeople, we're going to double down. That's our strength. That's why we're here. We're selling a sales product. We walk in the tent, we're fixing a drink, and we said to ourselves, we're going to be outgoing. We're going to ask questions. We're going to show that we care a lot about the people around us because we genuinely want to learn from them.
Yeah.
And so Josh looks at the person next to him as he's grabbing his drink, and he looks and he sees the orange lanyard, which signified that you're a partner at YC. And he looks at him and says, hey, and he looks at his name tag. He goes, hey, Paul, great to meet you. I'm Josh. This is Nick. How long have you been associated with?
I know who this is.
It's not Paul Graham because we would have recognized that.
No. It's yeah. You. I don't want to take your story, but I'm
so we
like,
look at Paul. We look at him, and Josh says, "How long have you been affiliated with YC? And what is your biggest claim to fame? As being a partner here."
Yeah.
And he looked, and it was automatically confused, and he goes, "I don't know. I mean, everyone's ever asked me that. I guess I could say I invented Gmail." And then we just looked at each other like, okay, we didn't recognize one of the most important entrepreneurs and inventors.
Tell me more about
in
Gmail.
Silicon Valley.
What's Gmail?
What? Yeah. What company was that?
Immediately realized that we don't recognize everyone that we were supposed to, but frankly, that just kind of sums up what we felt in the environment that we're in.
We've all been there before.
You get the hall pass because you're the hybrid model, so you don't need to know what everyone looks like in front.
Yeah,
a little bit of a hall pass.
Exactly.
You're not
I'll also say
all the time.
Yeah, very relatable too. For me specifically, Mike knows that I had one of these blunders very recently. Wow, was my face red. So, but Mike put it really well. Mike was like, honestly, Mike had a really interesting take on this. Actually, he was like, for people that are used to people basically fawning over them, it's actually might be endearing to not recognize them, right?
Yeah.
They might that actually probably stands out and is more comfortable for them than it's like, when they see someone kind of like whispering, right, and trying to think through their approach, right? Everyone's had that networking experience where you can feel someone's eyes on you from across the room. So maybe that is a little bit better. But yeah, that's hilarious. And like I said, relatable to me. So you guys are in the program. You decide we're the sales guys. We're going to kind of lean into that. Yeah. So what was that like going through, that entire kind of process, and also for you specifically, right? Because I imagine that Josh was kind of heads down, working on a lot of the sort of the technical aspects, right?
He was.
But did you feel like you were able to, contribute, find opportunities to, kind of use your strengths? Like, what was that like?
Oh yeah. So certainly had that imposter syndrome of I'm in a place that I don't belong. How am I going to make up for that? Asking myself all these questions of like, do I belong as a founder? Because maybe I should have joined later and just came in when it's, just an earlier stage startup. And so I had to kind of get out of that emotional turmoil because I was a founder. Those were the facts. I was here. I had to create use and value some way. Josh was certainly out there proving everyone wrong, building very, very substantial portions of our product, parts that we still use today and parts that we would never have gotten to at this point in time without the things that he built. And so for me, my whole philosophy was, let me go put myself in our future users' shoes. If I know the workflow, if I know the click path, if I know everything that I would want out of this product, I need to make sure I communicate that back to Josh and any other engineers that are going to be helping us in the future. And so in order to do that, I kind of dedicated my time spent to 3 categories. I wanted to be an absolute industry expert in pipeline generation. I wanted to strengthen my network to make sure I understand users and buyers and the things that they think about. And I wanted to continuously learn, which all 3 of these are obviously very, very connected. And so in order to be that industry expert, I had to really read as much as possible, understand the market, figure out what the biggest challenges and problems are. Why are we building something that's going to solve a pretty substantial problem? How do we articulate that when we do go to market? And so one of the number one things that we still, every founder and every person who is kind of working into, whether it's a founder or building a new portion of your product, is like just pure user interviews, going to future users and studying their habit patterns. Don't even tell them what you're building. Don't even tell them what it's going to look like or what you think it's going to look like. You shouldn't even know at this stage. And so going and studying everything that they run into, make them share their screen, make them show your click path, join them, or see if you can listen in if you get approval to some of their sales calls or gong calls or something like that, and understand where they really hit their challenges, because our observations from our past roles might not have been the right direction. And so those are the areas that I really wanted to focus on.
That's incredible. And I feel like we're hitting on some reoccurring themes here. Kind of 2 things that I want to zoom in on a little bit more. One is just, I'm always curious. It sounded like you had kind of a self-pep talk there. You know,
Yeah.
do you trace that back? There's the obvious stuff, right? I got to imagine when you're doing stuff in the Air Force, you know, literal lives are on the line, right?
Sure.
Do you trace back, you know, to that? Because I tend to, like, when I'm in these moments in life, I tend to think about very specific experiences, and I kind of like play the game of, I did this, so like this shouldn't be so scary type deal.
Yeah.
You know, how did you kind of, you know, you really seem to be able to focus yourself when you could have kind of folded. How did you do that?
Yeah. There were certainly highs and lows. Every day's high and low. There was probably no one moment, but there was one significant moment in the pivot or the decision to say that we're going to go scrap the product that we had worked the majority of YC on.
Wow.
And that was right at the end of YC, right before
Oh,
we're prepping for demo day.
yeah.
And it was an incredible heavy weight. And so that was a moment where we said, okay, finally, the product is starting to get to a point where I can go do something with it. Now, all of a sudden, we're scrapping it. And so
Wow.
that was a moment where I'm like, I was so eager to get out there. And it was absolutely the right decision. It was not the space we should have been building in. We talked about founder market fit a second ago,
Yeah.
and that was not our space, even though we were solving sales problems. So I always came back to this kind of I like to read a lot, like to listen to audiobooks, podcasts, everything to help me figure out where I really can belong in a space when you feel like you don't. And so one of we are very exposed to Paul Graham's essays and a lot of things that YC preaches. And one of the things that he preached, and I'm taking this off of the paraphrase of the podcast called The Founders. If you've ever heard of it, the Founder podcast is amazing. And so there was a synopsis done there about one of Paul Graham's essays that says, when it comes down to figuring out what to work on, you're on your own. And it's like really, really visceral, because when
Yeah.
you are on your own, like there is no teacher, there's no professor, there's certainly no boss to tell you what to go do next. There's no one even to tell you what the problems are. So you can't just be drifting around aimlessly and passively expecting a problem to pop up or a solution to pop up. You've got to go search for it. And so just networking, getting myself out there, joining Pavilion, like you mentioned, these are all things that got me in front of people to realize they're facing problems in their day-to-day work. How can we help solve that? Is it relatable to what we're building? And then obviously just continuous learning. We met in CRO school. We talked about how things like that are perfecting our sales skills.
Right.
Not only will it help me, but those are my buyers. I want to learn how they think. And one of the things I'm fascinated with is just influence and negotiation. So I just finished a course, negotiation mastery from Harvard Business School, and just really continuing to help hone my skills in some of the things that I'm going to face.
That's incredible.
That really resonates, Nick. I think
Yeah.
what you're saying is like you're actually dedicating a lot of time to learning, and like the thing is, what you're
Yeah.
saying, I think you're saying this is that learning is part of your job. So you're speaking
Of
to
course,
prospective
sure.
customers or someone that might fit the profile of one of your future customers. You're taking courses. You're going like traditional learning. Tyler and I actually came to a similar realization, but not as quickly as you. It took us
No.
about
Yeah.
3 or 4 years
Yes.
to realize that we need to be extremely intentional about learning and making sure that we're continuously doing that for ourselves, but also for the company. And so for Tyler,
Yeah.
that was CRO school where you guys met. For me, I also joined. I joined a different community in addition to Pavilion. Also, similar learning from a lot of founders. So that's a really cool insight, and one that I think it's hard to do though when you're a founder, because you're like, I need to be doing something that's
Totally.
creating revenue or something that building out
Correct.
processes. So it's cool to see that you've come to that realization pretty early on in your journey.
And we often talk about, if I can relate it to something, Mike and I talk all the time about, I think one of the common misconceptions, or one of the, not misconceptions, something you can, an easy trap to fall into as a founder is I call it like, mad scientist in your basement, right? In your lair, right? You're down there
Mhm.
and you're basically having these continuous conversations with yourself. You're like, no, this is the product. And you're playing, both sides of the argument, and you're just working and working and working. And you forget, because you think that's how you build a business. You forget that how
Yeah.
valuable it is to just get out there into the world. And even if you go to like a random networking event, I always say that, to me, people talk about starting a business and they're like, what am I going to do? I'm going to go get an LLC. I'm going to get a .com. I'm going to build a $20,000 website. And I'm like, okay, before you do that, just go talk to like 100 people about your idea, not necessarily customers. Talk to people that have no interest or idea in the space, and just watch if they maintain their interest, right? Like, and that'll tell you a lot.
Yeah.
So I think that that's such a valuable lesson. And like Mike put it, you learned it really quickly, which is impressive. But I want to, I feel like we jumped over a really important part. You guys scrapped your entire thing right before demo day. I was gonna like ask,
We did.
what did you do? Like,
Yeah.
how close was that
Well,
to
we
the? Yeah,
I'm having flashbacks like of showing
yeah,
up to school without my science project because
yes.
the night
It would be
before
the
I started my project the night before and I didn't have anything.
yes. Or it's like you walk out and you just like drop the science project and like the school bus runs over or something like that.
We certainly could have gone to demo day and fundraise off of an idea we knew we were going to scrap. The last thing we would ever want to do with someone else's investment is do exactly that. And so we understand there's pivots and all that stuff. And so we just thought it's not the best use of someone's funds to go invest in one thing and then literally the next day go have us build something completely different, even though we knew that was going to happen. So yeah, it was a very, very empty and lonely feeling. We were saying, this is it. This is the right idea. We are not right for this space. We could grind it out, but we knew exactly we were very, very knowledgeable about the space. We were not the right builders for it. And so for us to know so much about the space, we knew exactly what the competition was going to look like. We had to be honest in ourselves to say, we're not fast enough to build the thing that we want. Let's go figure out what we're really passionate about. And so we didn't even do demo day. Actually, there's a rare thing that most people don't even know about. Like,
I didn't know
we
that.
actually deferred demo day. So
Wow.
yeah, we're going to go do demo day maybe even next year.
Oh,
We're
really?
now
super
just
cool.
so focused on running the business. So yeah, we're focused on running the business, getting traction, and just building something that people want, which is exactly what YC tells you to do.
That's super cool. And I didn't even know that was an option.
Yeah.
I always pictured like you just do this crazy sprint to demo day and then that's kind of it. But that's really cool.
Yeah.
They'll let you do that next
Yeah,
year.
it's very rare for
Yeah.
sure. But yeah, that's something we're going to go target.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. And then still, I mean, do you feel like you learned some critical lessons during that experience? And then how did that kind of, how did that change or stay with you once you're outside of those kind of quote unquote the walls of YC? You're in the, I don't want to call it the real world because you
Sure.
were in that before, right? But you're in some type of real world. Now you guys are actually building
Yeah.
your product, right? But you
Yep.
still,
Yep.
this is where you and I have stayed in touch, right? Just kind of having some great founder to founder conversations. You've been like chomping at the bit to get out there and flex your sales muscles, but you're still,
Yeah. Yeah.
how do you play the waiting game? Salespeople are not known for their
So
patience. I'll say that.
no, no. So it was very much of like going and making sure we don't jump to a solution and ruin the next thing we go try to pivot to. And so it was very much getting and locking ourselves in a room, and figuring out what were those problems that made us want to be founders in the first place. And so we went back literally to the drawing board, whiteboarded all the different problems we saw, started making phone calls with people we know who are going to give us real feedback on whether or not that's something they still face. And we came down to the revelation of like what was the biggest thing that when we walked away from Drift, like what were we doing that was something that was very beneficial that we could have probably spent more time on had we stayed at Drift, was in this spot of getting executives involved in sales, in post-sales deals, how to create sponsorship, how to make sure that people in the employee base are helping sales get those meetings based off of their own relationships. Those are areas that we really fine-tuned and said, this is the thing that makes the most sense. We are relationship driven. We are very inquisitive on understanding how people operate. And so if we can go understand how to tap into someone else's authentic network, that's where we really want to play, but we just got to do it differently than the most.
Very cool. And if you were to kind of, just I guess now looking back, right, on this experience and where you're at, if you were to
Yep.
have a conversation with your quote unquote younger self, right, what would you kind of say?
Yeah.
Hey, this is what worked for me, and this is what didn't work when going through this entire experience. What sort of, if you had,
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the same amount of time, right, that you were given. If you had 8 minutes
Sure.
to give
Yeah.
someone a look
Yeah.
as what's coming down the line, what would you say?
My number one advice would just be like, don't panic. There was certainly a lot of panic. We had, money in our account. We were pivoting. We thought our company just imploded before it even got started. And so, one, don't panic. Number two, preparation is key. The middle ground between ignorance and panic is preparation. And so trying to figure out where you can prepare yourself to go down the right path and just look back at all the things from your own experience and from your own network, that'll help guide you to the next step of where you need to go. There's too many times, too many opportunities to try to boil that ocean and take on too much at once. Just one small step at a time. That's all you can think about doing at that point.
Amazing.
That's great advice. One step at a time. I've heard another person describe it as like, just pay attention to what's like 6 inches in front of your face, and keep moving one step at a time.
Yeah, this
That's
is
awesome
lame. I
advice.
certainly never. What were you gonna say, Mike? Sorry.
Go for it.
I was gonna say I've never served. Obviously, no stolen valor here. But I will say that for me, this is gonna be a really cheesy one. But Mike and I we're both CrossFitters, right? We've made it now a long time. I'll say 53 minutes before we said the word CrossFit, which that's breaking some records. CrossFitters are supposed to bring that up in like the first 5 minutes of a conversation. But I will say that experience of doing some of these more crazy, strenuous, crazy workouts, like some of the hero workouts, Murph or whatever it is, I use that actually a lot, in the sense that I just tell myself, it's the next 5 reps. Do the next 5 reps. That gets you that buys you into the next 5 reps, and then you just keep going until you've done 500 reps. And I feel like there's some good crossover there, which I'm sure that's my version.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you have some much better ones from serving.
Yeah. So much of what we do is all about mental exercise versus physical. And even CrossFit is very, very mental. It's telling yourself to go just do one more.
Totally.
And so you've got to exercise that skill set for sure.
Absolutely.
Do one more. Yeah, let's not let this be the last rep that the 3 of us get to do together.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
It's
the
been
time
a blast, guys.
so
Yes.
much, Nick, having you on this pod. And it's with open arms, we welcome you to our authentic network. Is that our authentic network?
You're in.
Yes, thank you so much for your time and for sharing this story and these insights. It's incredible. I think a lot of people will find this very helpful.
Thank you both. Great to be here.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And we will end on this. We like to ask our guests where what's next and where can people find you. So you mentioned potential you'll be coming to a demo day near you, hopefully very soon. But also, if they want to check out Vector, where do they go for that? And where's the easiest place to connect with you?
Absolutely. Vector.co. Come to our website, check it out. If you've got questions, nick@vector.co. Let me know if you have any questions, thoughts, ideas of where we can go in this space, other problems that you're looking to solve, and let's find a way to help each other.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, guys.